Big old shout out to our friends over at Terminals for providing us a copy of this game for review purposes. Thanks, gang. Hey everyone, it's Tim at Wembembo on everything, back with another small DLC episode, this time on Pathologic 3. Have I played Pathologic 1 and 2? No. Have I heard of Pathologic 1 and 2? Yes. So I understand the series has a bit of clout. However, this is my first foray into the series, and I thought it'd be interesting to dive in here as the most recent entry to the series, given that it's such, from what I understand, a massive departure from the previous titles. Pathologic 3 was developed by Icepick Lodge and published by Hype Train Digital, and released on January 9th, 2026. To briefly read through the description of the game on Steam, in this psychological horror game, you are a doctor with only 12 days to save a town from a mysterious plague, make ruthless decisions, diagnose with precision, and shape the town's future and rewrite the past. Hold yourself together while it all falls apart. Sounds interesting. Thought it'd be fun to check it out. So, you play as a doctor/detective, I think, called Daniel Dankowski, who is a pretty arrogant physician from just the mysteriously named capital. The whole thing with Pathologic 3 is as you approach this town, this plague-ridden town, you can have flashbacks and very much interact with these flashbacks to rewrite the past, changing the events of the present. Sounds interesting. There's also a really neat context system where you investigate basically anything. By holding Q, you could look at perhaps a briefcase that's been on the thrown to the floor in a train yard and see, and the game will point out to you some clothes are tattered, this person left in a hurry, which you could probably guess from the from the briefcase being thrown on the floor. But the point is that it will give you a bunch of context clues at the cost of your sanity. Now, this is important. So this game has a pretty major system in it called the apathy and the mania meter. So depending on the decisions that you make and the things that you do, like if you don't get rest or if you don't eat enough or if you take too much caffeine or drink too much alcohol or take too much medication, whatever the case may be, you are going to have some sort of impact on your mental state. And this can mostly manifest itself, to be honest, in dialogue options, of which there are many, and it can also manifest itself in sometimes visual and audio hallucinations. So, for example, I found myself investigating things a lot because it's my first Pathologic game. I wanted to understand what I was looking at in terms of what I was getting into, which meant my mania meter kept on going up and up and up and up and up, not realizing what it did. When I found out what it did, what my character had essentially done is gone through several dialogue options that were snappy or rude or very, very abrupt, because that's what my character would have done. Now, from what I've seen, if I was more apathetic, my responses wouldn't have been as harsh, shall we say. So as you're altering your mental state, you're changing your interactions with characters and your experience of the world, where a more apathetic person might not be hallucinating something, but equally they might not pick up on details. If you become too apathetic, you end up like losing your stats, for example, or you end up losing observation details, for example, that would be detrimental to your investigation. One thing that particularly stood out to me in this game, on top of the really interesting mechanic of the apathy and the mania, is the fact that it's a really unique setting. I don't think since Bloodborne I have played a game where there is a plague going in through a town and you are just arriving to help fix it. Obviously this plays nothing like Bloodborne. This plays much more like you're trying to solve a big puzzle as opposed to fight giant bosses. However, I thought this was really refreshing. Don't get me wrong, I didn't finish the game. It's a very long game from what I understand. However, what I did find was that I was really getting into this. Some of the designs of and I'm using enemy here as air quotes because there's not really much in the way of combat. There's a little bit, but it's not much. Some of the designs are really interesting. I don't know the full symbology behind them because, again, I didn't finish the game. But what I did find was that this game kept me interested. It kept me curious the whole time, and I think that's kind of what the point of this is. Just to touch more on the time loop system, the whole thing, it's called the amalgam system in this game, and the idea is that you can rewind time to specific hours or specific days in the town of Stillwater. So you can change how a conversation happens, or you can change what, I don't know, drugs or alcohol you've taken. However, in doing so, the game tracks when you've done this in kind of an event called timeline fraying. So changing the outcome too much makes the world unstable and makes the plague even more aggressive. So you can't just go back and be like, oh, I'm just going to fix this forever, because you stand the chance of making things much, much worse. To me, this is really clever because it makes you almost live with a lot of the decisions that you've done, whether you like them or not. It forces you into the role. It's just cool. It just has a lot of depth to it. It's neat. It's, you know, it's a fresh take on almost the doctor detective genre, if that's a thing. It's cool. I probably would recommend this. This has been Tim at Wembembo on everything. I'll see you next time.